Day 483 of the Trump administration. And as the president marks 1 year of the Russia investigation with a new dose of vitriol aimed at Robert Mueller and his team, there are new reports out tonight about a plea agreement between former Trump campaign chair Paul Manafort's former son-in-law, Jeffrey Yohai, and the Justice Department. Reuters was first to report today that Yohai has agreed to plead guilty in connection with a criminal investigation in Los Angeles and that the plea deal requires he cooperate with other investigations. Reuters puts it this way, quote, the guilty plea agreement, which is under seal and has not been previously reported, could add to the legal pressure on Manafort. Yohai has not been specifically told how he will be called on to cooperate, but the two people familiar with the matter say they will consider it a possibility that he'll be asked to assist with Mueller's prosecution of Manafort. You may recall Paul Manafort is facing indictments brought by Mueller in federal courts in both Washington, D.C. and the Commonwealth of Virginia. The charges range from tax evasion to bank fraud. Manafort has pleaded, notably, not guilty. He's slated to be tried later this year. Jeffrey Yohai was once a Manafort business partner, was divorced from Manafort's daughter last August. Both Reuters and NBC News are reporting Mueller has been focusing on Yohai for the past 6 months, and Reuters says Mueller's team has already interviewed him. Meanwhile, there are also developments in Robert Mueller's fight to keep the judge in Paul Manafort's Virginia case from tossing out some of the charges. Today, Mueller's team gave the judge a full, unedited version of the Justice Department memo that lays out the scope of this inquiry and what crimes he is authorized to pursue. As we mentioned, the president weighed in today on Twitter on the Russia inquiry. Here it is. Congratulations, America. We are now into the second year of the greatest witch hunt in American history. There is still no collusion and no obstruction. A few hours later, there was this. Wow. Word seems to be coming out that the Obama FBI, we switch to caps here, spied on the Trump campaign with an embedded informant. If so, this is bigger than Watergate. The rest of the message seems to have come directly from this interview with former federal prosecutor Andrew McCarthy, who appeared on the president's favorite morning program.
I've written a couple of columns in the last week or so pointing out that there's probably no doubt that they had at least one confidential informant in the campaign.
And tonight, Phil Rucker of the Washington Post, who joins us in a moment as part of our first panel, has co-authored a piece that says the president's message about the FBI indicates his latest effort to join supporters' attempts to discredit the investigation with a campaign to expose a top-secret FBI source. The Post tells it this way, quote, the stakes are so high that the FBI has been working over the past 2 weeks to mitigate the potential damage if the source's identity is revealed, according to several people familiar with the matter. Both the Washington Post and the New York Times have reported that an FBI informant provided information in the early stages of what became the Russia investigation. Also tonight, Rudy Giuliani appearing with Sean Hannity. He was also strong on this theme of the FBI versus Trump.
Now we know an FBI a spy in the Trump campaign? Well, Mr. Mayor, sir, this is the United States.
That's Watergate compounded by the fact that we're many years after Watergate, and we didn't think this could happen. This is a far worse crime and intrusion on democracy than a non-Russian conspiracy. And who's investigating it? I hope that this is turned over for criminal referral. And I hope for once the Justice Department wakes up and investigates something other than, empowering Mueller to do an illegitimate investigation.
So it went like that tonight on Fox News. And with that, let's turn to our leadoff panel on a Thursday night. Michael Schmidt, Pulitzer Prize-winning New York Times Washington correspondent, Jill Colvin, White House reporter for the Associated Press, and the aforementioned Phil Rucker, Pulitzer Prize-winning White House bureau chief for the Washington Post. Phil, you were on the board latest tonight. Walk us through your reporting. I tried to watch several hours of Fox News in prime time tonight. I can confirm this is the talking point this evening.
Yeah, Brian, look, there's been a campaign bubbling up on the right, on cable news, on Fox, on a lot of conservative media outlets, and it was given new life this morning by President Trump with that tweet that you mentioned. This is an effort to try to undercut the Mueller investigation by exposing the role of this FBI informant and perhaps exposing this person's identity. There's a belief within Trump's orbit from people my colleagues and I spoke to today that if that role is detailed publicly, if the identity of this source is disclosed publicly, that could help build the foundation for removing Mueller, for rendering the special counsel's investigation to be irresponsible, and really ending this investigation. They've been looking for some cause, some reason to go after Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, to go after Mueller, to really make it clear to the public that this probe has gone too far, and they feel like this is potentially that reason.
Phil, this is just a lay question. It may go beyond your scope, but can you imagine another case where we would rip off the identity and expose the identity of a civil servant working in an investigative capacity undercover for a reason allegedly for the greater good?
This is highly unusual, and it's worth pointing out that Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, who was nominated to that position by President Trump, he's an appointee of this administration. He testified in the Senate earlier this week to the importance of keeping these human sources secret, that it's not only this person's identity, but there are other lives at stake. There are U.S. intelligence relationships with partners around the world that are at stake. There are this source's contacts are in jeopardy as well. And it's also worth pointing out that this source, as far as we know, is a U.S. citizen who has been working with the FBI and the CIA for many, many years on a number of different investigations. It's not somebody who just kind of fell into their lap, walked in the front door as part of this Trump campaign operation, but is a source with longstanding credentials in our U.S. intelligence community.
Michael Schmidt, I was remembering yesterday, every Trump rally ends with "You can't always get what you want" by the Rolling Stones, so I found it poignant in your reporting that you co-authored yesterday to learn that this operation was given a Jumping Jack Flash lyric, Crossfire Hurricane. Having established that, and as the co-author of this piece of journalism yesterday that got us onto this track, go back in the formative stages of, again, what became the Russia investigation, your knowledge of what this source, what this informant, what this person was up to.
Well, it was very early on in the investigation. This is the summer of 2016. The FBI is trying to figure out what they have, what's going on. Very quickly, they can determine they're not going to solve this case by the election day. And they essentially take sort of a reserved approach to it. They do not take overt measures. They don't go out and execute search warrants. They don't issue subpoenas. They sort of work around the edges. It would make sense for them to talk to a confidential informant in that type of situation. That is what they do. That is sort of their bread and butter. It is now being demonized, but it sort of makes sense because the Trump folks have thrown a lot of stuff at the wall on Mueller. Not a lot of it has stuck, except on the FBI. That's where they've had their most success, whether it's on the text messages between the lead agent and the lawyer that worked at the FBI that came out that showed this anti-Trump bias, or questions that they were able to raise about the former Deputy FBI Director Andrew McCabe. That's where the success is. That's where they've really cut to the bone, because it's pretty hard to do it on Mueller. People find it very hard to go after his credibility, and the FBI, given all of the different roles that it has had in the 2016 election, whether it was Hillary, whether it was Trump, there's a lot to pull on, and it has, as we were saying, crossfire hurricanes, my colleagues pointed out in the piece, it has ripped the shingles off the FBI.
Absolutely. And Jill, to the point Michael just made, what has worked, in quotes, for the right in the past, does their choice to zone in on this talking point tonight, effective tonight, does that speak to you of confidence or a desire to grab a hold of the next shiny object?
Well, look, I mean, this is convenient timing for them. Rudy Giuliani has been saying for the last couple of weeks that he wanted to really highlight this is Thursday. This is the 1-year anniversary of the Mueller probe, and they were looking for things to be able to kind of make a big deal of this and to try to drive home to the American people that this is a hoax, that this is a witch hunt, just like the president was saying this morning. So this is a convenient thing for them to grab on. But I agree with what Michael was saying earlier with the idea that they really just have been kind of throwing things against the wall here, trying to find areas where they can go after this team, accusing them of being biased, accusing them of all being Democrats, despite the fact that that isn't accurate. And you've kind of seen this pattern of what they're trying to do here.